The irrational cannot be and must not be extirpated. The gods cannot and must not die. I said just now that there seems to be something, a kind of superior power in the human psyche, and that if it is not the idea of God, then it is the belly. I wanted to express the fact that one or other basic instinct or complex of ideas will invariably concentrate upon itself the greatest sum of psychic energy, and thus force the ego into its service. As a rule, the ego is drawn into this focus of energy so powerfully that it identifies with, and thinks it desires and needs nothing further. In this way a craze develops, a monomania or possession, an acute one-sidedness which most seriously imperils the psychic equilibrium. Without doubt, the capacity for such one-sidedness is the secret of success, of a sort, for which reason our civilization assiduously strives to foster it. The passion, the piling up of energy in these monomanias is what the ancients call a god, and in common speech we still do the same. Do we not say, he makes a god of this or that? A man thinks that he wills and chooses and does not notice that he is already possessed, and that his interest has become the master, arrogating all power to itself. Those are the words of Carl Jung, and I think they represent a very important topic. Because what is success? What is greatness? What does it take to become something in this world? I think this can be related to Jordan Peterson talking about the pareto distribution. You think of what does it take for someone to become successful? Once upon a time, there was a musician in every town, there was an artist in every town. But as we see the pareto distribution operating, you need less and less people to fulfill the same function, and so they get more and more opportunities. So a great example would be someone like Bob Dylan or the Beatles, if you want to go through music. And you see that because of the ability to record music, the albums of Bob Dylan can go where Bob Dylan could never have gone before. So it means that your voice can go before you, your deed can go before you. And so the internet has led to a skewing into a form of extreme pareto distribution. And so we see that modern life has led to a massive amplification of the pareto distribution, because the musician in every town, why do we need musicians in every town who are big when you can have a musician who is so much bigger, who's known all over the world, like Bob Dylan or the Beatles? And so their name gets so big that they gather more opportunities, more wealth, and just more status. They become known as the greatest musician, rather than being the greatest musician in a town. That's no longer enough. That's no longer a proper career anymore, because people don't need to go to you to get to music. They can go to albums, they can go to Bob Dylan, they can go to any musician that has an album out there, and all of a sudden you're no longer competing with the other musicians in your town. You're competing with all the musicians in the world in order to get heard, in order to reach the same amount of people, in order to reach, well, you've got a much bigger audience now, but there's far fewer musicians fulfilling the same role that was formerly fulfilled by many musicians, by an army of musicians. And so what we see is that there are fewer people fulfilling the role because of the replication of modern life, of mass production. And now with the internet, that's become even more skewed. So there's just this vast plethora of options out there. And how do you get heard? And that's where the pareto distribution comes in, because that's where the more you get heard, the more you will be heard. So there's this rule in publishing that the longer a book has been in print, the longer it will be in print. And what that just means is that, like, if a book's been around for 1 year, who knows if it'll still be in print in 10 years. But if a book has been around for 200, 300 years in print, it'll probably last another 200 or 300 years. So the longer a book has been in print, the longer it is likely to be in print. And to relate this back to what Jung was talking about, what does it take to become successful now? Because before, to become the best musician in your town, to become the best artist in your town, maybe it only took for you to be a better musician than those people. But what does it take to become the greatest musician in the world, the greatest musician in history? Well, that probably takes a one-sidedness, a monomania, and a complete channeling of one's identity and all of their time into that. And so it brings to mind someone like Elon Musk, someone who's putting 120 hours in a week. It's someone who's so monomaniacally bent on their enterprise that it consumes them.
But in his day, there was very few people like him.
Yeah, that's true.
What if there was 1 million? Like what? And then
things would advance very quickly.
Right. But there's not a million Elon Musks. There's one, motherfucker. Do you think about that? Or you just try to not?
I don't think you'd necessarily want to be me.
What's the worst part about you?
I don't think people would like it that much.
Well, most people wouldn't, but they can't be you.
It's very hard to turn it off.
Yeah. What's the hardest part?
It might sound great if it's turned
sleep?
on, but what if it doesn't turn off?
Passion in that sense, passion coming from the Latin patior, meaning to suffer. It's you suffer for what you love, and it's that thing of a god possessing you and consuming you. And the ones who are most consumed by the god will put the most time, the most energy, the most effort into it, and they're going to be the ones that are favoured by the pareto distribution. But is the one who is consumed in such a way, is that someone we want to become? And here's where Jung is talking about what it takes to become successful. And it looks like becoming imbalanced. You know, to be balanced and to merely give each of the drives within you their fair due, that's not going to get you to become the best in the world. It's someone who becomes imbalanced. It's someone who becomes maniacally bent on one thing. And they put all their energy into that, and their relationships fall by the wayside, and their health falls by the wayside. And they're consumed by this thing, and they put all their energy into this thing, and because they've spent so much more time in it and so much more energy on it than any other people in the world, they become the renowned expert, or the person who gets the most success out of it. Now, not always. There's not necessarily an equivalence here, but the people who are at the top of the distribution will generally be the people who are hell-bent on it, who are consumed by the god of it. And that applies in more or less all of the arts and all of the sciences, really, is that the more someone is consumed by it, because if you're thinking about it 24 hours a day, then you're more likely to have those insights, to have those breakthroughs, to have the creative evolution. And so when you look at greatness, and you look at someone who's at the top of their field, and the greatest in the world, or the greatest in history, then the question that goes with it, I guess the way I used to put this to myself is that there is no correlation between greatness and health. But maybe there's an inverse correlation. Maybe there's a correlation between imbalance within the psyche and success. And maybe to become successful, especially in a world that's so bent on the pareto distribution as we are because of the internet, because of the shrinking of the whole world into a single platform, can you be the person who's most heard on that platform, on the internet? Well, how do you become that? So do you have to become so imbalanced to beat the other people? And so health, and so wisdom, and so to be a good philosopher, you might be doomed to failure. So it's an interesting thought that the possession of the gods, to be possessed by one god, is the key to success. But the key to wisdom and happiness is to be objective of any god, is to not be consumed, is to give all of the gods their dues. And by gods here I'm talking about the different drives within you, the hunger drive, the drive to relate, the drive to look after your health, the drive to, to look all the different aspects of being a human, and to give all of those their fair due, and to live a fully balanced and healthy life. Well, that might not be complementary to success. And that's a very interesting thought, I think, and a scary one in some ways, that the internet is essentially, and modern life, even before the internet, is causing us to grow like wayward trees, and we're becoming hyper-specialized, and we hear the drum of a god, or else maybe we don't get heard at all. And then you think about how the people we have as role models are generally those people who are at the top of the pareto distribution. They're the greatest artists, they're the greatest musicians, they're whoever's probably greatest in our field. And maybe they've just been consumed by the feel, by their passion. And maybe they're actually, and this is more important, I guess, for philosophers and psychologists, that the people we admire who are most heard might not be the people we most want to emulate. And that's an interesting thing. I don't think, as I said, it's not a necessary relationship, but there's something there that's truer than it is false. And yeah, that was my thought for the day. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please subscribe if you haven't already, and I'd love to hear from you down in the comments. Otherwise, I shall see you next time. Thank you for watching.